Hi everyone, I'm Caroline Murphy-Bennis. I just want to make a video to say thank you so much to everyone who has helped me put together my latest book, Declare a Republic, a Free State of Mind. It's a poetry book. It's my first collection. It's kind of based, I suppose, on kind of a Celtic spirituality, we'll say. It's to try and bring us back to nature and to a deeper connection with life itself and to ourselves, to people around us, and to bring a more of a deeper understanding of, how our lives can have an impact in the world at large. And I was thrilled to have received some beautiful photographs from all around Ireland to go with these poems that I had written a number of years ago when I had taken, you could say, kind of a retreat really, a number of years ago into the west of Ireland, into a cottage where we started to renovate. And it was kind of a bit of an experiment to see what a human being could really needed, and to pare away everything back to simplicity and back to, a really close connection with the environment. And, I learned so much in that time because where the cottage was, it was very much in the wild, in the wilderness, and it wasn't it was just so fierce, and nature was just so strong around me. And we tried to cut things back and they would come back even stronger each time they were cut back. And eventually, I used to sit and look and contemplate. And before that I had studied and I had deepened my understanding about learning doing through a postgraduate I'd done with Griffith College, and I had also started to lecture design principles. So then I started to see these kind of universal principles that were present within nature that could be applied across everybody's life. So that kind of journey continued, and it was a kind of an introspection. And from that, these poems arose from those kind of experiences when I had come back to Dublin and I was in my everyday life. And I suppose I used to be cooking meals or just doing simple domestic things around the house, and I tried to keep that simplicity of living with me and try to be more present. And it was kind of more of an experiment then, how could I bring that kind of philosophy of living from the countryside and from that retreat back into life and back into city life. Now, I knew nothing about mindfulness or spirituality or anything like that. It was more of a natural, innate curiosity that just life had brought me along that journey. So I started to become really present and, much more happy and harmonious in my relationships and with my family and with my children. And, a richness kind of came into my life a lot more so, and I was much more contented and at peace with myself. And so I suppose that became very much a practice in my life then, my day-to-day life. And when I saw that happening, kind of as a silver lining when it came to the lockdown, I could see people kind of going out in nature and, having to retreat back into their homes and stay. It was kind of an enforced retreat, I could see. So then I thought maybe it would be helpful to put together this poetry book from my own reflections. And there is a lot of surprises within the poems that arise that sometimes I have to go and research myself afterwards because they're like, it's inspired. So it doesn't, from being a creative person, I know what it feels like to actually come up with an idea yourself and use the mind to kind of create something, because that's been my profession. But these poems come from a lighter place and a more inspired place, where it would just be maybe a sound or a word would come and then it would just flow out of me into, like kind of a layered, multidimensional thought that had a lot of depth to it. And even after I had written it, I would need to go and look into maybe the deeper meaning behind it, and it brought me, and I kind of educated myself about things. So, you know, I think really when I look back at it now, I think it's like as if there was a kind of a more of a, you know, a Celtic spirituality. And in this one poem called In Unison, it was interesting because, you know, as I had researched and I had taught and lectured around design thinking, I had gotten really interesting in the mind and how the mind works and the different states and the different brainwaves that we can access, and our creative, the states that we get into for creative thought. So I was listening to music, and you know, I just was in this kind of elated mind frame when you're doing something that you really enjoy, and I started thinking about unison, and that means unison means one song, and thinking of the idea of, you know, communion. And this is something, you know, from I suppose my childhood growing up as a Catholic. You know, we went to communion, and you know, kind of deepened my understanding, what does that mean? And it's kind of the idea of us being together and in communion together. And so the nature then, and in communion with nature. So the poem I just wrote down very quickly, and strangely enough, I went downstairs, turned on the television, and you wouldn't believe that there was actually a program on the TV about, I think it was in the Dark Ages. It was a very old looking period movie, and the girl was reciting pretty much the same poem, and it was this poem I'll recite to you now, and then I'll explain to you. In unison, in rapture, in bliss, in ecstasy, in spiritus, in sanctus, in unity, in flesh, in blood, in wind, in air, in water, in earth, in fire, in communion, in unison, act. So that was a simple poem that I had written down, and then I listened to this, and I just obviously was so curious to see, would this, the poem that the girl was reciting, or it was a prayer, I think, and it was about in wind, in air, in water, in earth, in fire. And I thought, wow, I was blown away that I had just thought of this. And so then I went to look and see where the origin of that was, and maybe it was, you know, this concept of the connection with nature must have been around, you know, in ancient times. And I came across in Glasneville Abbey, the monks that were talking about the early Christianity and the Celtic Christianity, and that a lot of their prayers and a lot of their reflections, meditations were all around nature. And they talked about that, the wind, the power of the wind. And I suppose this was such a beautiful landscape in Ireland that, you know, we are very, and we can get access to that force, the force of life itself, the force of nature. And, you know, how do we, you know, to understand that we're part of that, you know, and that we have that power within ourselves as well. And how do we harness those elements within ourselves? So, you know, a lot of the poems have stories behind them like that. And I just hope that maybe if you could take some time to reflect and to look over them. And even if you, like yourself, you can't leave cities, or you can't go very far from your own home, that you'll be able to do some wandering and travelling around Ireland through the photographs that people have sent. And it's been a collaborative piece, and I'm so thrilled that everybody has been so kind to send the pictures together, and just there's hopefully some solace in it for you, and hope you enjoy it. And it's available internationally now. In Ireland, it is accessible to Ireland, to the UK, Amazon UK, and I hope that the book it looks as good as it does on the page. I'm really happy with the photographs, and I hope that the words can inspire you, and I'm looking forward to get my own copy soon. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.